All right, ladies and gents, welcome back. It is Thursday, the 2nd of September, 2021. SPY coming in again with all-time highs. What's new? Bang, bang, bang. Bitcoin still hitting. We just hit 49.9 within the last hour here. We're now at 49.6. Moving a lot, moving some other Bitcoin sector tickers like BTCM on the day, which is pretty interesting to see. This one was crazy. Mara has now passed Riot as well as kind of one of the leaders for the Bitcoin sector leaders of what it's doing, especially looking on the daily. It's in a pretty nice uptrend, kind of following a little similar to what Bitcoin's doing. There's Riot as well, but BTCM was pretty insane to see. This is a pretty low floater as well, I believe. Of course, it's a Chinese company, float of 22 million, but crazy day today on that one. Other market internals on the day around the horn for the dollar volume. We see NASDAQ is pretty low. Same old dollar volume that we've been kind of seeing. Again, just over an hour after market close here. NYSE, same thing, 236 billion in OTCs. I think over $1 billion volume as well, just under 3 billion. Getting pretty nice there in that regard. Two trades for me on the day. One pretty nice percentage move in GSAT, and then PSTV. Of course, I had a lot larger of a position size in PSTV than I had in GSAT, and on the P&L it looks pretty terrible, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But learning lessons all around the horn, and glad for it every single day. So coming into the morning, I really didn't have a lot coming from yesterday on the watch list, and nothing really popping up, catching my eye hard on the mover scanner. I know we did have GSAT. The third day on GSAT was yesterday, but it didn't really do anything that day, but actually put in a nice and solid base here, like 186 level. If we're looking a little longer of a time frame, let's do 5 minute maybe, a little better representation there. So we had the nice first day here on Monday. Tuesday had a little bit of sell-off here, kind of slowing down. And then Wednesday, of course, just slowing down even more, a little bit more we're taking, but solid, 100%, triple bottom even here, if you want to call it that, from this Tuesday and Wednesday. Now coming into this pre-market, not a lot of volume being put in right away from that initial open of pre-market, but then you just get this immediate spike pretty much almost. The first time I pulled this one up was right before we were about to hit this $2 whole dollar mark. And just watching it right on that point, I first off saw a huge seller with like 5,000 plus shares showing on the ask at 199. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, maybe we just get a little test of two and fail off here. Maybe it just does absolutely nothing today. So wasn't really thinking anything hard of it at that point. But then we did actually surpass 199 and got to the $2 level on the ask because that seller did step up to $2. So, okay, sweet. Let's see what it does from there. More and more volume coming in at that point. And we did actually, so like that's $1 million pretty much sitting on the ask at that point. And I knew that that type of dollar volume had to come in order to break that type of resistance. And sure enough, we freaking saw that. This was a $1 million candle. 720,000 shares within this 1 minute here. That did get us the actual push to the upside and didn't move it extremely quickly away. But of course, I knew I had to get some position size in there at least. If we're breaking through that type of resistance in the pre-market with a former runner that could still, the other factor of, hey, we have a nice base or kind of bounce off of this 186 area, this could do some crazy things. This is like the 727 million share float, which is absolutely ludicrous. I don't even know how it started spiking that first day regardless, but of course, if it shows the ability to spike, we got to keep an eye on it, especially in the pre-market as well, too, which was its biggest spike on this green day. It really didn't do much. Did have a little bit here in the afternoon session, but the big heart of the move, of course, was the pre-market. So I knew that was going to be the key for me today, too, with this trade. And after I was in the trade, and now, okay, we're pushing away from price quickly, as Mike Bellafiore says, and I love that quote, too. Pushing away, if we're in a breakout situation, we want price to move away quickly from that area to show there is support, there is action coming in. Now we're getting more emotional. Chasing is starting to happen across the board. So enjoy to see that, and knew in the back of my head that I was going to say, I didn't want to play this one to market hours. I knew the heart of the move, like that first day, or its characteristic at least from what little data I have on that one day, is to say, hey, you got to be looking, if it shows any amount of strength, comes close to 10% in pre-market, take it, because that maybe could be all it does today, seeing that this isn't really the third day pattern that is pretty popular, but it is the fourth day. But sure shooting, man, we got some nice strength with more volume coming in, just absolutely destroying this VWAP coming along nicely with it as well too, which was encouraging to see. I sold my first half just shy of 10%, which would have been 2.2, obviously from a 201 entry, again off of 10 shares. But anyway, regardless of taking off half of my position just when I thought we were seeing a little bit of a turn here, but of course it did shoot just a little bit higher. 2 dojis here for the peak, which was interesting. A little pullback, but that was pretty much it for the pre-market and gave me a hell of a cushion to sit and relax with my remaining shares, even though it was a $10 position size I was sitting on at that point. Especially if it was a full position size for me, I definitely would have been sitting pretty going into market hours. Let it do what it wants to do. If it dies, it dies. I certainly had a stop right above my entry of 202. If it was going to come down that hard, I knew the trade would have been over at that point. Had some choppiness, little spike above VWAP, reject, still under, putting in some wickiness, John wickiness. Then coming back up to test for a new market hours high day, consolidate area here. Now we get new test above that, continue pushing new highs. Now we're actually new highs from the pre-market as well too, which I definitely took off 3 shares. I think I took off here into strength at that new high day test, which was a nice sell. Had a reject off of that, which I think a lot of other sellers here were looking for as well. Lots of, even the volume candle chart here, you can just see lots of different areas where I thought we were going to reject here. At this point, we got some nice slap downage point from that 2.2 area, which was kind of that 10% point, or the more round area of a 2.2. That's just, it rolls off the tongue nicely, 2.2. So maybe sellers or bidders just taking off their shares, taking profits, slapping this down at 2.2. But then certainly more people wanted to come in at this point and taking off more there. Had a little bit more legs left in it, which is why I, choosing curiosity a lot in this one as well too, with keeping 2 shares on, keeping 20% of my position on at that point to see, hey, maybe we do get a nice trend the whole rest of the day. I didn't expect it going into market hours, and I wasn't really planning on that being a part of my trading plan, leaving a lot on for a full green day trend, especially with the fact that it's a super high float and doesn't have a lot of history in market hours of just showing craziness. But it did have a little bit more left in the tank on the day, and even kind of double topped here, even after I put my stop in. Again, arbitrarily putting the stop in anywhere around here. I knew I was just going to give it a good enough amount of freedom that if it was just going to continue to curl up and up and up and up for a solid morning green day trend, that I wasn't going to cut that short quickly enough. Not putting a stop here per se, but just giving it a little bit more. So trading as if I wanted to just keep a lagging, following, trailing stop, but maybe could adjust it looking at in the future of how far off I put that from price action at that point. Just learning factors in all of it, but of course did have a nice little bounce off VWAP, retest high day, and then fade off here into the close in the afternoon. And then talking about, I look back at this one and it's so tough because as I'll get into PSTV, which was not as good of, it was a potential dip and rip and it looked awesome. And I know Chris was put his money where his mouth is, heavy into it as well too, thinking it was being a nice dip and rip. But it's just so tough because now today's a red day in the P&L. But this is an awesome 8.5% trade. And this is where I was talking about yesterday too, the fact of, man, it's so tough for me to take such a small position size in these ones, to only be risking $2, or to take, this is a $20 position size at this point. And yeah, I don't really know what max, if I was so gung-ho about it, to say what probability I would have placed on this to say, I want to take a $500 position size at the break of 2. Maybe if I was more motivated by it, or saw price action, saw any amount of this consolidation, maybe this consolidation area here, adding some at this point. But yeah, it's always tough to look back at this and on the days when you're having a diet and you're so proud of yourself and you're eating your little kale avocado, and then everybody else is, oh, it's National Donut Day, and everybody else brings in donuts, and you're like, oh, that's fun. That's kind of where I was at with this one on GSAT. Great trade, great identification, awesome reading of the candles, awesome experience in every single facet of the chart today. Don't really know if I'm going to keep it on watch at all because it's kind of now put in a higher high on this day from this kind of cupish breakout area. It's certainly going to need a heck of a lot more volume if we want to get anywhere near, which some other tickers show some great volume attributes that I wanted to talk about as well too, just from my teaching space. But that was GSAT PSTV was the other one. This was just fundamentals to go over. First, it is a American biotech, sketchy company, number one, check the box. We got a 21 million float, reported short interest of 1.4%. News catalyst was commercial manufacturing supply agreement for blah, 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 investigational drug. Don't really care. Daily looked decent, sketchy, and one and done types of patterns. We absolutely love it. Huge volume day. Love to see it. Putting in some not too overextended, not too sell-offish in the pre-market to try and scare either side out, but just bringing in everybody. Looking great as a dip and rip pattern, especially going over my trades now, especially putting in this little base here in the pre-market, 224 it had. I took a 10 share position here. Similar to, so I think this is now the start of the week, or whenever SPRT ran, and then RHE, I think they did the same thing of starting off, if I assume or I see a pattern or any type of trade indicator that, oh, hey, I think this could be a type of bounce area or whatever indicator that I think could happen from there, taking a super small size starter at that point. Even though I don't think that the actual trade is there, but I do think a potential nice trade could come later in the day or later within that hour, taking a starter position, because then that, I love to go over this again, because when and if it does, it did bounce off this area, and now we're trending around like 235 or whatever, like coming back up here, and I'm just kicking myself the whole time because, oh man, I knew I should have bought off this. That's such an obvious bottom here. Why didn't I get off that? And then I'm now just, it's that little tiny taking away from my mental capital that's using up space to say, oh, you should have been in at this point. Why didn't you do that? And now I'm not 100% focused on what the price action is saying right now at the moment. But now that I have a super, super small position size in it already, even if it goes against me and I have to cut it, what's that loss? $1, right? Max. And it's just a learning lesson of two. Okay, that wasn't the indicator I should be looking for. And like I said with GSAT too, what lessons I'm learning from that small position size, but at least I value more the upside of saving myself the mental capital from the FOMO that I didn't get in originally versus any potential loss I would be taking from just a $20 position size on this from the get-go. So that was the thesis for this first entry. I thought we were getting, of course, I'm trading this on the tick chart as well. That voice in my head is saying there too, man, you got to give this more time from market hours if it's going to go. Of course, we broke this bottom, that 224 bottom pretty quickly, but it did just like chop quick. So speculation was, okay, maybe they're just trying to stop out the people who are basing their trades, same thing off of that. We've also got a few more levels here we can base off of just from the pre-market, not that they have any actual weight in the trade, but just thinking, okay, we're holding pretty well here. Now the 222 is looking pretty good here. It just sounds so nice off the tongue, 222. So I get another 10 share position here at this point. Still super speculative, of course, because I know, hey, I don't think it's the probability, if it does start spiking immediately from there, these shares are really just protection in the case of, that's not the trade I was looking for. But I want to say to myself, hey, you were correct at this point to say, this doesn't look like it's going to fail at that point. And now, of course, I can look back and say, man, you were wrong. But when the times it does happen or doesn't happen, if I'm just continuing to be wrong on this, then I can take the learning lessons from them with my super small position size, not having to go full crazy with my 100% position size right away from the get-go. I can scale in by little tiny bits. And when I feel even more so confident in a trade, if it's going against me like this one today, like a PSTV, it's where I fall into a trap a little bit of, okay, now I have a bit of a sunk cost average on it. And that's where I'll have to balance myself out a little bit too, and understanding, okay, what was my original risk level from my first entry? Was I going to say that $2 was my risk level? Am I going to let this thing trace all the way back to 210, 205 and then say, oh, the entry looks great there, but then I'm still already down 10% pretty much from that first entry, which I wouldn't want to do I wouldn't be taking a full-size position trade from this point anyway and just letting it drag along that whole time too. But that's still kind of screwing with the whole point of establishing this first trade to begin with and getting the feel for the ticker and establishing my trade parameters from the get-go. So defining myself both ways And that too is just becoming another learning lesson the whole way too. But anyway, so got in pretty deep. I think this was another 10 shares here as we found a little bit of a curl, quick little dip to 215, found a way back up. And then I think I slapped it with 100, 200 share at this point. So yeah, slapped it. This was another 10 share to get me to 30 share, $60 position size, and slapped it. I thought this was going to be the nice basing or curl back to VWAP test to the upside, even though that wasn't. We still had 10 minutes left till really 9:45, which would be the optimal dip and rip time. I thought, man, I think this could have the potential to go from here. Slapped it with holding myself accountable to what is the $500 intraday ticker limit for myself. Considered, okay, let's take just over half of that on this trade, because I feel a high probability that it could happen from here. Of course, it doesn't happen. We get a test of this low day again. We actually break that low day, which forces me out of the trade at that point. But then we get a basing there once again, starts curling back up. Then I get into that FOMO. I mean, I'm watching this. This is, even though this looks pretty quick, it seemed like an insanely long amount of time. It is like 2 minutes, 6:38 to 6:40. And it's that whole time of, okay, now this is another awesome consolidation, little bottom here we're seeing. This could go from there. And I'm identifying even at this point in time, okay, there it's curling there now back to this 216 level area. It could go up from here. And it's that same principle that I talked about with the reason for this pre-market entry. Now I feel like an idiot as it starts curling all the way back up here. And that's when I get into that little bit of FOMO, that little bit of chasiness, that I still believe that the risk reward potential, even from this point, is so huge. I think this thing could easily go to new high a day to 5 without a doubt, especially from the upside that it's put in the past. It's super low float. Just love the volume on it today too. I think it was the biggest trader on my scanner. It only had 130,000 trades at the end of the day here, but I think it was the biggest trader of all the big percentage movers on my scanner in the morning. So I knew quite a few eyeballs at least were on this thing. I had to pull myself out immediately, pretty much right after it, because then second guessing really isn't the right word, but I felt like I was catching myself to say, hey, I never want to be entering a trade already chasing it, is the mentality I was trying to get to, and understand, slapping it back on myself to say, why the heck? Well, first off, why are you feeling FOMO about it? It's not like it's moving so incredibly rapidly without you and you're missing it. And first off, if it is going crazy without you, then you have to be willing to step away from it and not get in front of that moving train. You got to be able to let it go. Another one will come sometime in the future. Just be patient. But then it kind of gets toppy here too, and I just get that instant flashbacks to all the time I've just been stopped out of these so quickly, or they just get immediately slapped to the downside with 10,000 waterfalls. They break new low day, halt to the downside. So, and that is the epitome of why I didn't want to be in the first place. The reason I was able to stop myself out was because entering a trade from the get-go in a chasey frame of mind makes me make chasey decisions while I'm in the trade. And I cannot do that. That is not trading whatsoever. Of course, that was not the end of the trade, and I was top tick, bottom tick pretty much. This little move here, that was another, that was $10, $15 loss, whatever. That was pretty much my day, in a sense, the reason for that, the P&L on the day. But of course, it wasn't the end of it. I was just getting faked out this whole time, and this is another great lesson and indicator for me too, that the slowness that I need to have on myself, even though the market or the chart may be moving crazily against me, all around me, I still need to have that slowness within inside me. Because if that's not in me, then how do I expect to act normally when the market is moving like crazy? So great learning lesson on that one, and I paid small price for it. Stuck to my rule. I was so freaking tempted over and over and over again, seeing this consolidation, failures break to a new low of day, thinking we are curling back to VWAP. This could be absolutely awesome. But did well because I was already like $7 over that $500 limit. Holding myself, it was that limit of $500 that I set on myself that I can trade in a full position size on one ticker in one day, just because of overtrading. And the fact that, like Bryce Dewey likes to stick to, if he strikes out 3 times on one ticker, then he's done for the day. Yeah, 3 is definitely the max for me, and 2 is pushing it, like today too. But we did actually get a curl, finally curl break to the upside. above VWAP and then just absolute slam to the downside. It was pretty fast on the 1 minute candle. This is within 1 minute, but it wasn't the fastest thing I've ever seen. I think there was time, at least a little bit, to get out. Huge volume candle though, that just huge amount of overhead from somewhere that wrecked this thing to the downside. More lessons for the data book on that one. Other tickers around the horn today that I did not trade, but just wanted to mention for myself. ANY had this one on my watch list actually as a short, which was interesting because we were getting to this level here of just kind of double topping this, or like I mentioned with GSAT or PSTV. What did I mention? Again, putting in a little bit of a lower high, just not a lot of volume coming in to support this, and it really truly did need a volume day like today in order to have a move like it did today. I don't see any. I don't see any. It did actually have news catalyst today at 9:26 Eastern Standard Time. Easing regulations gives an impediment to relocating crypto miners. I don't think this is exact. Oh, and he's just mentioned along with a bunch of other Bitcoin tickers as well too in this one. But we did have, just kind of nothingness from the beginning, then just huge squeeze to keep going. Volume coming in to absolutely pump this thing. Lands just under 12 and then slams back down immediately. See what it does after hours here coming in tomorrow. We will certainly keep it on watch, but again, it's got to have that volume. And it was good to see that. Learning the lessons from, I forget which video that was on YouTube, or just different searching that I'm doing now too, of realizing even though it may look good on the technical sense, judging that, you have to pair that with the volume chart as well too. Days like this can't happen if the volume isn't there. Of course, this is a 5.8 million float company as well too, so that certainly doesn't hurt to go along with the price action, but good chart or frame of reference as well too, especially if like looking at this pattern here too. This is certainly nice. It's pretty far from VWAP at this point from where it's building, but it's just continually testing, putting in higher lows, trending to the upside. Then you get that nice immediate push there from 9 to 10, 9.5 to 10 here. That's just crazy, riding higher and higher, squeezing shorts all the way. Good example on that one. And then KPLT, similar thing. This one came off my watch list because it really didn't have a lot of volume this morning, or it came off my watch list this morning. And again, it's in this downtrend. It wasn't really perking my interest. I forget the float on this one as well too. 84 million float. So yeah, I was like, yeah, screw it, whatever. Let it do its thing. But again, it did have the volume to come in today, and it found it curling, testing high day once again, still curling well above VWAP, and then volume comes in to push this thing, which it desperately needs, especially with that higher float. It wasn't as big as this initial day here for this kind of spikeage, but you get that similar type of intra-daily pattern where you're spiking, holding, failing to really break down, and a day like today too, to get that volume. That sign of volume is the push, is the entry signal to establish a trade like that. Good example today. SPRT had a nice little squeeze out of the gate, similar kind of setup to BBIG as of yesterday. Not, of course, the same type of percentage move, but still in this little downtrend, looking for any amount of bounce on the day. And it really still, we still could be in for a nice first green day. Let's do this 5-minute chart. We're still really kind of looking for that first green day, and that could set up nice. We'll keep that on the watch list for tomorrow as well too, if it wants to do anything like that. But it did have a little bit of a squeeze right away from the get-go. Same thing that BBIG did, kind of just within the first few minutes, we get that nice little dump and tracked in more shorts. We're still trending under VWAP. People thinking, oh, this could be it. It could just go from here, and then you just get the immediate slam right back in their face to the upside, crack through VWAP. Doesn't actually ever halt, doesn't go quick enough. I think the circuit breakers have just been abused so much that they're not going to halt going to the upside. But nice price action, nice percentage move within the first few minutes of market open on that one, as a quick short squeeze, quick red-green reversal. It didn't really actually go. It was green the whole time from the close of yesterday, but of course, just slapping the open price from that point too. Good to see. IPHA was another one that popped up on the scanner this morning. Just immediate and huge spike to the upside in the pre, came all the way back down. That's an incredible morning dump. Even if your entry signal is VWAP crack, it still had plenty of downside beyond 10% from there too, but then just really did nothing the whole rest of the day. This is the reason I would love to see the ins and outs of these types of tickers and the reasoning behind them, because we see same press release come out twice for some different reason from two different news press wires. What's the name for them? They will be whatever is presented at the next ESMO 2021 virtual Congress. Just stupid, sketchy news. This is a 51 million flow, reported showing interest of less than 0.5%. Just absolutely ludicrous. It's an anomaly. It's kind of a black swan-ish, especially coming from this crazy daily, whatever that is, stupidity. But I just like to point it out. I just like to marvel at it because it's so crazy and cool. So that was all I had for Around the Horn on the day. Watch this for tomorrow, FCUV. I want to keep an eye on as well, too. I think it could put in a nice little red to green move with the low float that it is. Of course, it's just this 2-day mover as of right now. But again, the super low float. What is the float that I mentioned? 15 million float. So we could see some nice squeezy action coming in. Hopefully looking for some halts. Of course, we're trending pretty low on the day. At the end of the day here already under VWAP. We'll see what it wants to do coming in to the end of after hours here in the pre-market tomorrow. I think mainly probability-wise, it could be just a nice short. I certainly won't short it, but I'll keep an eye on it, keep it in the database of the brain as a short, but just absolutely be looking for that red to green line. If it wants to start putting in some nice volume, especially and hammering some shorts to the upside, that could be a nice move, similar to B-Big. I hate to try and compare everything, or it could be the next B-Big, or blah, 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 but just keeping things that are happening in mind and understanding that history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it rhymes, and especially for us history. So yeah, that'll be on the watch list, and especially since the fact that it's now short trade restricted, short SSR. Yeah, let's go with that. LUSI as well, the OTC. Not an insane amount of volume on the day, only $7.7 million volume, and did actually close off pretty sadly here to end the day. So could just be a nothingness day tomorrow, but definitely watching for a second day play, looking for red to green potential for a move to the upside. If it wants to base anywhere, we got this 60 kind of whole area that could help, but nice percentage moves to definitely establish a trade if we want to play anything to the upside. Definitely huge risk reward opportunity if we break from the high of day yesterday. I am burping like crazy. So keeping an eye on that one. And then the other ones I mentioned, of course, any SPRT as well too. That was all I had. I thank you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching. That was Thursday again. Looks like depending on what we do tomorrow, we're just keeping our head to the grindstone. Sizing a little bit more down on position sizing with each and every single trade, but continuing this freaking grind. I love it every single day, and it's continuing. I didn't think at this point, of course, that this is where I would be. And I really don't even know what I mean by that too, but I thought, oh, this is the lesson plan that you learn this day, and you just continue to learn different patterns and charts, and that's how you develop there. But I'm taking it where the wind blows and what the market says and how I'm reacting to it, and continuing to push myself harder, more and more into it as far as I can go without breaking, of course, just to understand, hey, how far can I go? How far can I take this? And never putting that limiting factor on me, just going with the flow and understanding that money is money, and it is so fake and meaningless, and not just going YOLO, absolutely crazy bananas, understanding that reality too, but just continuing to hammer away each and every single day, and the losses are a good factor in that, and just continuing to ramble my mind away. That's pretty much the mentality I'm going for. So I thank you guys so much for watching. I thank you, Brent, future Brent, for watching. If you're watching all the way this far, I love you, Brent. I'm doing this for you, future Brent. We will catch you guys tomorrow.